Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Leaders Toolbox podcast. I'm Andre Young. I hope that you've had an amazing day so far, and I and we look forward to making it even a bit better with today's special guest, Ann Frewin. I am so excited to have you on the show, Ann, and I always like to start with how I get to meet people. And I encourage you as a listener to be eight again, like 8 years old again. I have four kids, my youngest kid, and you watch young kids play, and they'll walk up to somebody and say, "You want to be friends?" The other person says yes. They go have a great time. They don't even know each other's names. As leaders of our own lives and professionals, networking is important. And via LinkedIn, I got to meet Ann. And then we got on the call, and I'm like, wow, she's really cool. Would you be on the show? Do you want to be friends? And now we're on the show. She's about to share nugget after nugget. And Ann is a continuous improvement expert. So, Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Andre. I am happy to be your friend.
There you go. And now, friends for the world. So, you guys listening, buckle up, pull over, do not take notes while you're driving. Um, let's jump in, let's dive in. Because, Ann, I love your title, continuous improvement expert. And I know you've been an executive within companies in multiple industries, and I'm all about continuous improvement as personally and professionally. And I believe in upgrades, always upgrading your people, upgrading your processes and your technology. But can you tell us what continuous improvement experts do? What do you do, and how does that work within an organization?
Yeah, excellent. First and foremost, I've been doing continuous improvement for about 12 years. And prior to that, I was in finance. And so I brought this finance background into my continuous improvement work. And when I look back, I can see I was doing a lot called a process improvement, continuous improvement back when I was doing finance even. I was learning about how to help people think differently about their processes and their workflows and all of that stuff. But it wasn't until I was working in Central Maine Healthcare where I really learned about continuous improvement, process improvement, what that is. And so, as a continuous improvement leader, expert, pick a title there, fantastic. Um, I work with organizations, whether I'm either internal to that organization or an external consultant to an organization. I am working with leaders to equip them with behaviors to help build basically engaged, high performing teams. And what that means is I'm training frontline on how to be problem solvers of their own work. I love to say that I help people fix what bugs them. But
Ah,
but at
I
the same
love
time, I
that.
have to help the leaders too, right? Because the leaders need set of behaviors and a culture in order to provide that. It's a whole different way of approaching work, right? It's not the old top down, I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do your job. Continuous improvement is about teaching the leaders how to be better leaders and teaching the front line how to fix what bugs them.
Wow. And that's a full circle perspective. I mean, you guys listening, I mean, I wrote down three big things from what continuous leaders do and what you're an expert at. High performing teams who doesn't want that. But how you get it is giving frontline the power to be problem solvers.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely huge. And then the leaders to create a culture in which that's going to be okay.
Right. Right. Absolutely. There's so much, I agree, there's so much in that. And I love getting into an organization and working with that. Sometimes though, it's people don't want that. They want it, but they don't have time for it. It's hard. It's not an easy shift of mind. You really have to want to create that atmosphere, to create
Yeah,
that culture, and to
yeah,
be a different leader, right?
yeah.
There's like, oh
Well,
my gosh,
or frontline person. So let's dive into that a little bit.
please.
So because you're so right, just because it makes sense doesn't mean that people want it. So let's start frontline. There are some frontline, not all. Anytime you say every or all, you're wrong. So there's some frontline people that come in and say, I want to be frontline. I'm that's above my pay grade. I don't solve problems, I do the job. But you're coming in as a continuous improvement leader, giving them permission to solve some problems.
Yep.
What suggestion would you give to a frontline employee who sees something, thinks something, because everybody's got a better way of doing something, right? And they're closer to the problem. How would you suggest that they become a better problem solver? What's one or two things that they can do?
So I learned these three questions
Mm.
throughout during my career that I put in there. I call them guardrails for helping front lines identify problems that impact them. Like it has to be within their own control, right?
Right.
And so if the first question is it safe? So if they have this idea of how to make things better, is it safe? No employee is going to get hurt,
Mm.
and the
Love that.
customer, patient, whatever the customer is, the product, the service isn't going to be impacted, right? It's safe for all the people involved. Does everybody who needs to know? Communication is a huge part of all of this change, right? But we have to make sure that the people who are doing the process, who are impacted, the same, like my peers have to know, but also like downstream, if it's something that's going to maybe change down some,
Right.
do they need to know, right? Does everybody need to know? And then can it be undone? So what happens if you put this into place and it doesn't actually work or it doesn't give you the results you wanted? Well,
Yeah.
then go back to the way you were doing it, right? And so that's where I start with people. It's like, if you can answer yes to those three questions,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
tell that to leaders all the time too, right? If your front line can answer yes, then why do they have to go to you to get permission to do this, right? If it can be undone, nobody's going to be harmed. It's not going to impact the product.
I
Let's
love that.
try it.
I love that. And for leaders and employees, I always say, listen, when you bring this idea to someone to do, let's say you bring it up for someone to do, a lot of times the person receiving your information thinks you want them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Right.
already doing a million things. So sometimes the no or the dissatisfaction you get comes from, "Oh, you're asking me to do one more thing." So
Right.
instead saying, hey, listen, this is my idea. What do you like? Anything you would change? And let me do a trial run. I'll do this. I'll initiate it. Give me a certain time frame, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, a quarter. And if it's working, great. If not, we'll scrap it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then your leader goes, all right, great. Or
Right.
let me check and get, some more permission for it. But I love that. You guys listening, I told you, Ann was going to deliver nugget after nugget. So, front line, to get your ideas off the ground, to be a better problem solver. Is it safe? Does everyone who needs to know? And can it be undone? And that's freaking powerful.
You said something a minute ago, right? It's the no. We so often frontline have been told no for various reasons. There's not enough money,
Mhm.
time, right? I've got too much on my plate. There's a lot of companies that have tried to put in these suggestion boxes, right? Where I think a lot of people have moved on. Idea systems. I'm big on idea systems. It has to be visual. It has to be for the team. They have to do it right. A lot of times these idea systems, people are like, hey, we've got one in a computer, right? They just have to enter their idea into the system and it's going to go in and the managers are going to review it and they're going to decide what's going to get implemented. And there's so much that can go wrong with that. I've
Mm.
seen it only work really well in one organization, and that was a small organization with really engaged CEO and leadership team, and they had a good feedback loop. But that's one problem is sometimes there's not a feedback loop like, hey, Andre, that was a great idea, but we can't implement it for these reasons, right? We just move on. A lot of times they just move on. Another is that what's important to the management team is not what's important to the front line, right? A lot of times these ideas are like, I
Yeah.
was working with somebody recently and they're like, we need a step stool because we're ergonomically stretching our body to reach something,
Right.
to cut something, and but they didn't even have a methodology a method to ask for that until we
Wow.
put the idea system into place, because probably they asked once before and they were told no, or it was forgotten about,
But
right? And so it's so important that we provide this system for people to have, because the managers, what's important to them is not what's important to our frontline.
can you keep going on that? Because there's some companies listening to you right now, and they're like, I love the idea. Like, so I wrote it down, the idea box, where it used to be the old school suggestion box. You
Yep.
talked about the inner system of putting it into emails, which can be lost and it can be very non-personal. What's something that most companies could do, most leaders can do that would actually work in a realistic pace of life, the day, and volume? What's
Yeah.
the thing you would suggest?
So when I'm working with companies, I introduce this idea board, right? It's a visual board, it's a whiteboard. There's a section for the idea being submitted, a section for in process, and usually 3 weeks, week one, week two, week three, so that you can visually see the card moving forward. When we talk about continuous improvement,
Mm,
we're talking a lot of times about making work visible. So where's the idea in the system? So you said earlier, how much time can I have to make that idea, implement that idea? Here we go. Let's start with 3 weeks. And if we need longer, we can take longer. But it helps people stay on top of it. But the key of it is that the team comes together and they're talking about those ideas that were submitted.
yeah.
And the team with the leaders coaching, right? We need to develop leaders to be coaches, but to coach them through asking the right questions, making sure it's in the guardrails. But then the team gets to decide, are they going to implement that? Are they going to try it? And then they talk about it every week. It's a weekly meeting at the
Yeah.
huddle at the board. They
Yeah.
talk about it, and the team just is keeping them on track. The person who submitted the idea is the one who gets to implement it. Unless they've got too many on their plate, then they can ask somebody else to implement it, right? But it's so simple. It's so
Yes.
simple. And
Yes.
anybody who's listening and wants an example of what that would look like, let me know. Reach out because I've
Yes.
got
I,
tons.
I love how simple that is, how doable that is. And you made mention of that weekly meeting. And I often talk about a lot of, the one-on-one meetings, and there's certain meetings that we need to have.
Hmm.
And making that meeting a priority because you're listening. I know you're busy and knows you're busy. Respectfully, I tell leaders, so what? You want to be busy or you want to be better? And we have to have that meeting. It doesn't take a long time, but having this type of meeting will get continuous buy-in to the culture, communication, and connection. And it's going to yield results. Why not have it?
Right. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
yeah. So we talked about frontline and how to get their ideas off the ground. And I love the idea of the idea board. Genius. What about the leaders? How do you suggest leaders create a culture in which their people feel okay, safe, and good to come to them with ideas?
Yeah. So psychological safety, right? That's what it is. You have to create an environment of psychological safety. So how do you do it? First and foremost, it's really about listening. I tell people so often, communication is not one way; it's two ways. It's so good about let me tell you my plan, but you got to have a system for listening, right? So that's where the idea board comes in. It provides that first opportunity for listening. The other thing is don't say, if there's a no, if you have to say no to something, provide a reason why, right?
Yes,
Or
yes,
or or table it, right? And another part of those idea boards is we have a place for a parking lot. Like we can't do it right now, but we don't want to lose sight of it. But the other part of that is, I find for what I work when I work with leaders, the other piece of that, and you mentioned a bit ago, is I really encourage the daily huddles for the leaders, looking at their metrics every single day and talking about what's working and what's not working. Because in a continuous improvement environment, the key here is that you make problems visible and then you address the problems in real time or as
yeah,
quick to close to real time as possible, right? Um, if you are having a ton of meetings, if your schedule is packed with meetings, you're going to be like, I can't do another huddle. And I'm going to tell you, if you meet daily and you talk about the right things, you can reduce your meetings substantially
yeah,
because you're really addressing every single day those things that you're going, I got a meeting in a half an hour and when we meet monthly. And
yeah,
there's nothing that gets done in those meetings. Like meetings should be really like touch points,
yes,
updates. And if it's truly a decision-making working meeting, then schedule lots of time for it. But every single day, huddles, we call them tier huddles, right?
yeah.
Starting at the front line again, but at the leadership level, they should be talking about key metrics. It should take 15 minutes. And then anything that's escalated at the lower levels is addressed.
You know,
People, right? Manager
I
team calls
love
up.
that you're sharing that because having that meeting and the metric review for daily huddles. And what I know this, and I'm going to tell you this is my weak spot. World, you're listening. Here's my weak spot. I love people. I love communication, connection, culture, and results. You know what I don't like? Numbers. However, numbers matter. And that leads me into our next question. Like I'm literally looking at this question here because some businesses and well, all businesses need numbers. But numbers mean different things for different people. So when when a frontline is bringing their idea and trying to marry it with the numbers that make sense for the boss, the organization, when we're looking at these numbers. Where does the frontline employee or leader get the numbers from? For some people, this may be very obvious. For others, I can tell you they don't like it, they hate it, they reject it, and they run away from numbers. So for that person, me, where does one go to get the numbers?
Yeah, wow. So I'm so amazed in this day and age of data rich, quote unquote, environments, the lack of data we actually use.
Because seriously, if you're not a number person, because you're like, okay, well, where do I start? Now,
Right.
obviously, there's people in the company that you might go to, but where do you get the number?
Yeah, and it's I think part of it is data paralysis, right? There's so much data we don't even know, like it's too much. And so boy, I don't even I'll be honest with you, right this minute, I don't know where do we start because we could start with strategy, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? Because you have to have a strategy, you have to know where you're going, you have to know what the key metrics are for the organization, and that's a lot of times where we organizations fall down is they don't have a clear strategy with specific metrics. And so I come from a background called lean. Lean is my methodology for continuous improvement. We use 4 or 5 key categories: safety, quality, delivery, financial, and people. And sometimes safety and people is combined into one. So some people will talk safety, quality, delivery, cost, whatever. Those safety, quality, delivery, financial, people, those are the ones I use. So what are your metrics for that? So zero harm, right? We don't have zero harm. We're on time delivery. It's the right amount and the right quality to the right customer, right? That's key. So if that's a strategy, then start there. What's the numbers that we want to have for that? And then you cascade it down. That's a challenge. That's a whole
Right,
segment
right.
of continuous improvement that organizations have to get to. But that said, like I'll go to a front line, I'll be like, all right, let's just start. What is your goal for today? How many do you have? Let's talk manufacturing. We can do this in healthcare too, by the way. But let's talk manufacturing. What's your goal for today? How many widgets do you need to make today? That's your goal. How many did you make this hour? How many do you make the next hour? You start with hour by hour metrics, and then and you're counting. You don't need a big fancy electronic system. You can count them. You can set systems up to count them. And then did you do your stretching might be a measure. Are there any safety issues? Did you have a safety issue? That might be a measure, right? Did we meet our delivery goals today? Yes or no, right? So it doesn't have to be complex.
Gotcha.
At the front line, it's here are the goals for you today. You have to produce this amount. You don't want to get hurt. It has to be delivered to out the door. So, and then you can take it up the notch, right? If you missed something, you should escalate it up to the next huddle. They talk about why they missed it, what went wrong, what do they need to do differently, right? And so each level of huddle has its own metrics that are specific to their area. But at the front line, it should be just stuff they can count. We don't want to be.
I love
I
that.
want the team to be able to feel ownership to those numbers and not say, oh, my supervisor has to print that off of her computer and bring it to us every morning. And then there's no
I love
attachment.
that. I love that because when a company or a team already has existing numbers and are measuring things, now what you're measuring can be compared to what has happened in the past.
Right.
So this number here, okay, we're up 20%, we're down 20%. Now, where are we going? If you haven't been measuring things, you can start today by doing this simple method of simply counting, and then in the future, you're going to have something to compare it to.
Right.
So yeah, it seems like anybody could start doing that, and it doesn't have to be a formal thing
Right.
that any team leader could start.
And then the question is, you say in the future is tomorrow. So your team
Yes.
comes together tomorrow and they say, hey, what went well? Hey, we exceeded our goals. Why? What went well? Not just
Mhm.
what went wrong, what went well. Reflection is another big part of continuous
Yes.
improvement and lean methodology. Talk about what went well. And if there's a problem, here's the thing. Make problems visible. So many leaders are afraid of problems, right? And that's the psychological safety, going back to that, right? If we're afraid to bring problems to our leadership, we're not going to fix anything. But if we say we want to know what the problems are, then we can bring those up. And if we fix the problems, like, hey, thanks so much for letting us know about that,
Hmm.
then then that starts to change that culture, right? There's a great story in Toyota. There's a book, one of my favorite books, Katie Anderson, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn. fantastic book.
Mm.
And she was interviewing this guy, I don't, I'm going to kill his name. Uh, Shino is his last name. Isao Shino. I cannot remember his first. Isao. Yes, Shino. Anyway, he tells a story about he's a Japanese. He's working in the U.S. for Toyota, and he's on the front line. The leaders are go and work on the front line, and he's in the paint room painting the cars, and he makes a mistake, and they pull their cord, they stop the line, and he's freaking out like he's going to get fired because he made a mistake. And the leaders came down and said to him, "Thank you so much. It shows us where there's a problem in our process that we need to fix.
Yes.
Without that mistake,
Yes.
without telling us about the mistake,
Yes.
we would not be able to fix the process."
Yes.
And that's huge. And we so many people don't get that, but that's that psychological safety. It's we have a problem, let's fix it. And then you know what? Frontline's gonna be like, oh, I got an idea, I got problems, right?
Because it
Uh,
becomes contagious because you created that safety. I
exactly.
experienced that on the other end as a leader of my own company because in what you shared, uh, employee made a mistake, leader came down and said thank you. And incident happened. Incident. That's a strong word, isn't it? An incident happened like a year ago, and my team said thank you to me because
Mhm.
whether it was a mistake made or something didn't go, and I said it's okay. And I
Mm.
said it's okay. This is what we learned from it. This is what we're going to do, and either from the mistake, we're either going to learn from it to improve it, or we are going to scrap it because it's not. So here's the options from it. And they said how quickly you moved on past a mistake that cost 35,000. That was a $35,000 mistake. Okay, we can't get that back.
Right.
So we might as well learn from it and make it a $35,000 lesson.
Exactly.
So now,
Exactly.
what is it that we need to do? We'll do this, this, and this. And it was really such a powerful thing. And years ago, that happened to me when I was an employee. I made a $40,000 mistake as an employee. And for some people, that number is objective. That's a lot of money. That's a little bit of money. But I remember, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me?
Right. Right.
And I will say I never made that mistake again. My leadership was, they said, listen, okay, this is what happened. This is what we need to do. I understand. Boom, 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 boom. No,
Right.
I never made, but that was a $40,000 mistake that I'll never make again.
You never made the mistake again. One, because you weren't chastised, right? Two, because you felt trusted and respected by your leadership. But the thing is if they hadn't reacted that way, or if they
Right,
hadn't reacted at all, that $40,000 mistake now becomes 80,000 and then 120,000, right? Because
right.
it can happen by you, it can happen by your peers. But by
Yeah,
changing that
true.
culture and
Yeah,
saying,
true.
hey, let's fix the problem, or thank you, let's what did we learn from it? You're reducing the risk of having that happen again.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, no one felt worse than me
Right?
because
Absolutely.
I made that mistake. I was late to doing this thing, and, administrative paperwork. I had no excuse, but it was me.
Yep.
So, and what an opportunity to then accept accountability for something. I don't think there's anything more leader than accepting accountability and be willing to do something better the next time. And
Correct.
human, and a friend of mine said, oh, I got caught being human again. I said, it was
Love
funny.
that.
That
It's
was
so
funny.
true. And that's this thing. Like I talk about to people when I coach leaders. It's like, you have to create up the process, the systems, so that people can't make mistakes. Because I don't care who you are, you're going to come to work, and you might not have slept well the night before. Your kids are sick. There was something happened. Somebody cut you off on the road. There's a distraction. Everybody has distractions, right? Every day we can be distracted by something. And it's not that you're coming to work and not wanting to do a good job. You're human. Things are happening around you, and you're not paying attention every single second to the work you're doing. So,
Yeah.
how do you set up the process and the systems
Yes.
to
Yes.
help reduce the opportunity for the mistake to happen?
I love that. And I tell people, especially when you're coming up with a new idea or a new process for doing things, I'm like, where's your cheat sheet? Because if only you know how to do it, whether you get hit by that proverbial bus that we always talk about, whether you get sick or what, can anybody else do what you're doing? And
Right.
so creating those SOPs, the standard operating procedures. But I tell every employee, you have a book within you. Do you know how much you know about your job? But so
Oh,
little of that is written down in steps where you can pass it right off to the next person that comes in or the person you're training.
yep.
We're all a walking training manual. We just haven't written it down.
And that's just it. You can't have it up here. You
Yeah.
cannot have, sorry, up here, I'm pointing to my head. You cannot have it in your head, right? So how much can you make visual on the floor? Whatever that
Mhm.
floor is, right? And you don't want to put wallpaper. I know people will be like, well, if I put paper up, it's going to become wallpaper. Yes, change it up. But what's the issue today? What was that problem that your metrics told you about this week that you need to address? What
Mhm.
do we need to put in place so that we create a system so it can't happen again? And so you take those SOPs. Oh my gosh, SOPs drive me crazy. I like to read, but I don't like reading textbooks, right? So I'm reading these SOPs. First off, I have to read all these words and then I have to remember it when I go do it on the floor. And I've
Right.
just read about 16 SOPs and then I have to go do all this work and remember things. So first off, can you put a visual like one page cheat sheet on each machine? Very clear.
Yes.
Or I love
Yes.
this even better. I've seen this in some great factories. Good, bad. This is what bad looks like. This is what good looks like, right? So if something's going wrong, this is not the right way to do it. But even recently, I was working with a group, and it was we were in the warehouse, and they had pallets, and they were trying to get rid of all the broken pallets. So they stacked them up, but they stacked them up right next to the good pallets. And honestly, if you look at them, you could technically tell the difference, except for the one day that I saw what looked like a good pallet in the bad pallet box. But whatever. And I said, can you put something there like I'm talking about an orange traffic cone on top of the bad pallet, just as a way to slow somebody down to go, oh, bad pallet,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they're like, and here's what they said. Oh, no, but they know to check before they pick them. And I'm like, again, what are
Right.
they thinking about in that moment?
Right.
Bad pallets or their kid who's sick at home, right? Orange cone. Like, how can you just make things visible
Right.
so that
Just
we're
means stop. And then,
just need stop or
yep.
something so that we're because even if it's in our head we're training people. I train differently than you. We have to make sure that it's done the same way every single time to the best of our ability.
And I would put some more leadership onus
Mm.
on front line in regards to this. And it's interesting, when I was an employee, every boss I ever had at a new job told me to stop doing this. I would come in and I would have a notebook. Now you could walk in with an 8 by 11 notebook or one of the little things that you can keep in the back pocket. And I'm ADHD. I have a hard time learning things that I don't care about. I have a hard time remembering that thing that you showed me 4 days ago, and I have to use it now.
Oh,
So if I'm not using it every day, because some tasks are daily, some tasks are not. So when I go to use this thing that I learned 4 days ago, 30 days ago, there's no way of me remembering it. So I would print a notebook and I would ask my trainer or boss, I say, listen, can we slow down for 1 second so I can write down what you're telling me in a process in a language that I understand? So I only have to ask you once. And now when I go to do that task, I can look at my notes instead of this thing that I don't understand because maybe it's a different language.
right.
Maybe it's the
Mm-hmm.
way you learn best, whatever it is, but I'm writing it down in the way that I know I'm going to go back and get it. So it reduced all of the back and forth questions and the mistakes moving forward. But every boss that I had in that 3 year span when I was taking different types of sales jobs and learning different processes to start my business, every boss I had said, "Oh, you don't need that."
Oh,
Every
absolutely.
one of them. So I did some work with Snap-on tools years ago, starting out, and they had language barriers, they had age
Mm-hmm.
barriers, they had all these different things. So most of the people's style of learning was hands-on and written. I said, well, why are you then telling them what to do in a different language with a language barrier in a rushed and irritated tone and then walking away and thinking they got it?
Yep.
So now, so then they started carrying that notebook and I could write down the task in my own language and my own order. I know what to do and now I only have to ask you once.
Right.
So I love what you're sharing. That idea box I have written down. The cheat sheet. I love that. The process. Let's switch gears a little bit, Ann.
Yeah.
I want to talk about leaders in transition
Okay. Yeah.
and whether it's a leader in transition to a new role within an existing organization or a leader that is currently between jobs and whether that was wanted or not wanted, but they're in between and they're transitioning. What are some of your suggestions? And I want to talk about it from both ends because perspective matters. If you're that leader that's currently in a transition, wanted or not, what advice would you give that person to do in this professional journey that they're in?
So one of my favorite books for transitional is The First 90 Days.
Mm,
They in the first 90 days it actually talks about even before you start to look for another job. Like if you're in transition between jobs, before you get the new job, there's things you could be doing right now. But
mm,
one of the two of the things that it really focuses on in transition, and this is internal, if you're moving from job A to job B in the same company, first off, congratulations to that. And or if you're going into a new organization, there are two key things. One is what's the data? What are the metrics that you need to know for your business, for your line of work? And then what are those metrics at the organization? Like find out what the data is that you need for your job. The second one, though, goes back to how we started this whole thing. It's about networking, right?
mm.
And it's scheduling. If you're in it going from job A to job B, maybe you're changing departments. Who are the key people that you need to talk to
Yes,
and get to know in your
yes,
department and other departments? It's
yes,
okay to spend the first month just meeting with people and learning
yes,
about what your job is. How does your job impact people? What are their challenges? Because guess what? If they're especially if they're downstream from you, if they have some challenges, it might be because something going on in your department, your area that you can now as a new person fix, because it's always the new person comes in and asks like why questions. Why are we doing it
yes,
this
right?
way, right? So getting to know who the people are and what their challenges are will help you know how to do your job better. And then
Mm,
you've made connections in a stress-free environment because you're new and I just want to get to know you. I'm trying to get to know the organization. I worked in this really big global organization once, and I told people I have got a puzzle that I'm putting together because it was so
mm.
complex. And I'm like, and you are a piece of my puzzle. I'm trying to figure out where you fit into this big picture,
Love that.
and it was just help me solve my puzzle, right?
Wow.
And so it's getting to know the right people. And then if you're between jobs, I'm telling you, I'm between jobs right now, to be honest with you. And my network has really rallied around me. And so I am talking to people, as many people. That's how I reached out to you, right? Hey, Andre, we connected somewhere on LinkedIn along the way. Let's meet face to face. Uh, People out there are so willing to work with you.
Mm,
Last night I had a neighbor and her daughter over. Her daughter's looking for work. I said, "You got to start building your network." I said, "When I
yes.
was your age, I was like, I don't need my network. I can." No, you need people. I'm thinking, I
Yeah,
wish I could help her. I don't know anybody in her field, but I bet I know somebody who knows somebody. So I'm
yeah,
going to start keeping my ears and eyes open. I reach out to some of my friends and say, "Hey, I want to just run this by you professionally. Can you help
yes,
me?"
yes,
People are willing to help each other, especially in this environment, because everybody knows everybody, somebody who's out of work.
yeah.
So I truly believe the first thing we have to do is just start talking to people and connecting with people, and using each other because at some point, maybe somebody helps me, I'm going to
Yeah.
help them in return one day.
And I would say talk to as many people as you can because you don't know who knows who.
Exactly.
Too many times we go after the title or the position, or I know this person has this job. Well, you might, I tell everybody, gossip good. Because if you're
Right.
in transition, you can become a grouch. You're upset of what your old company did to you. You're upset about the lifestyle you're living right now. You're down in the dumps or you seclude yourself. No, go gossip good about everything. Go gossip good about your last job, your new opportunity, your husband, your wife. Go gossip good because people are attracted to good gossip.
Mm-hmm.
You'll attract the right people and you'll repel the right people. And then
Absolutely.
and then they go, "Oh, you know what? My brother-in-law works in a company like that, and you would be a really good fit. Let me connect you guys.
Yep.
I was at a restaurant and I overheard the next table, and the family was talking good about a job or somebody. They were
Mm.
talking good about the job. I never forget the waitress came over to them and said, I am so sorry. I overheard your conversation and my son is looking for a job. Are you guys hiring? Because you're out to dinner at wherever your favorite restaurant is. People aren't walking in with a title glowing above their head, senior vice president or recruiter,
Right.
or you don't know who people are.
Right.
Be
Nope.
a good human, gossip good while you're out with your intentional network and others, and you never know what can happen,
Exactly.
especially sporting events. I was at a sporting event. My son was playing out of state. He's a quarterback, and his backup quarterback, they were splitting time. And a gentleman comes over to me and says, "Hey, so what do you think about this quarterback?" And the other quarterback was struggling.
Hmm.
I could have negative gossiped. I said, "Oh, this is a different type of game. He's going to do well." I said all of the good stuff, the right stuff. 10 minutes later in our casual conversation, he said, "Oh yeah, I'm the vice president of this. I've been following you on LinkedIn for years. I'd like to bring you into our company."
Right? Because you didn't
So,
bash anybody. You were found the
right.
positives. Yep.
So in transition, please gossip good to your, and
Absolutely.
I love everything that you have mentioned. And we have talked for about 40 minutes here, and you have dropped I have the quotes of the day here. Um, Help me solve my puzzle was the latest one that you said. Going in and transitioning to a new position internally at your job or at another job. The first 90 days is networking, know the metrics that you want and that the company needs, and tell people, can you help me solve my puzzle? That's awesome.
You know what all
Um,
that is, Andre? It's learning. And so humble leadership, right? You have to be open to learning as a leader. If you're not open to learning, there's nobody out there who knows everything.
right.
As a strong leader is always open to learning, and that's when you go to a new organization or a new job and you go in with a mentality of learning,
Yes.
you're going to draw bees like the honey, right? It's so important because people are going to be like, oh, you're willing to listen, you're willing to learn, and
Wow.
bring you along.
I love it. Another thing that you said, and you guys listening, make problems visible. And
100%.
handling that like a leader and thanking them for the situation and sharing what you learned about it and processes for it not to happen again. The idea board that really stood out because it could be something that any leader could do in a small company, big company, and take responsibility for their team, having a board visual and moving it within that 3 week time frame, and the parking lot of let's
Mhm.
park this. And I tell people, look, let's make your yeses powerful and your no's meaningful. And you mentioned that. When I say
Yep.
no, it's not personal. This is why. And we
Right.
may park it for a while. Um, I want to do a lightning round with you. So,
Okay.
really quick, you ready?
Bring it on.
All right. So, Ann, what do you do to maintain work-life harmony when you're not continuously improving work? What do you do for fun to make work-life harmony good for you?
I uh I am a singer. I'm I'm a choral singer. Let's make that clear. I'm a choral singer. I'm not going to be up there, on a jazz band. But I'm a choral singer, and I'm in a couple of community choruses here that actually get to sing with the Portland Symphony Orchestra here in Maine.
Oh,
So
that is so
I
awesome.
do that every Christmas is one of them, and I just joined another one that maybe once a year we'll sing with the orchestra. I love that. Absolutely love that. So music is really important to me. And the other piece of it is I love to travel. So I want to be a travel guide when I retire in my retirement days. I want to travel the world and I want to bring people with me. And I love traveling.
That is so cool. That feeds right into my next. I was going to ask, what would people be surprised to know? And you just stunned them with two. So singer and travel. So I'm going to switch the question up. Um, I people ask where's my favorite place to travel? They all are special. But what stands out for you as a travel destination that awed you, AWE, that left you in awe?
Ooh, that question. To answer that question, I would say Provence, Maine. Oh, it was beautiful. I wasn't
Mm,
there in lavender season. I want to go back in lavender season.
mm,
But it just, I lived in France when I was little for 3 years, very little. And so to go back, I love France, but I love the southern part of France, the old style towns built into the hills, the
mm,
beautiful landscape, the people, the food,
mm.
the wine. Yeah,
All right,
love southern France.
I'm booking my ticket now. Last question. What big thing are you currently working on?
Ah, I am working on starting my own business.
Ooh, there we
Yeah.
go.
I've submitted an LLC name of employee-centric leadership, waiting for the state to sign off on that. I've got some clients here in Maine, really wanting to get in and work with some more companies, doing what I do, doing what I love to do, what we've been talking about, helping leaders develop those behaviors and the culture, psychologically safe environments for their employees. That's what I'm working on right now.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. I know you guys listening are blown away with the nuggets and the tools. So this is called the Leader's Toolbox. We talk about tools that you can sharpen to add to your professional toolbox or brand new tools that you would not have even thought of. So I hope that you got some great tools here today. I know you did. And how can people get in touch with you to either bring in employee-centric leadership into their organization, or if you're interested in, hey, like, listen, I need Ann in this company now. Like, so how can people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is the best way. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So find me on LinkedIn. It's Anne Frewin. I live in Maine. I think you'll probably have a link maybe in
Yes,
the
it'll
show
be a
notes.
link attached right to this episode.
So find me on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Well, Ann, thank you so much for being here today. Guys, as we close, you know, like I know that I've been asking this question to you because I don't want, and we don't want this show to be simply entertaining. We want it to be impactful. Throughout today, you found out something new. And leaders don't waste their epiphanies. Knowing something new without applying that something new can never lead to anything new. So, two questions for you as we close. One, what was your biggest takeaway? You heard something today. What was your biggest takeaway? Number two, what the heck do you plan on doing about it? Be sure to put your answer into your phone and work calendar with notifications and alerts. So you have to ignore what you know would be great for you, your team, your people, and your organization. Guys, thanks so much. And until next time, enjoy your evolution.